A very good afternoon, my dear viewers, and welcome to another live session with GETI or Global Education and Training Institute. I'm your host, Preena Arora, Ambassador of Change, and today we have with us someone very interesting, dynamic. He's going to talk about a very relatable topic, something that I am scared of very much. That's mathematics. Mr. Divesh Bathija, who is the founder of Unmat School, which is headquartered in Mumbai. And he started this organization to reapproach the crucial but much misunderstood subject of mathematics to tell people that what exactly maths is all about. It's not just to fetch marks. The peer pressure that comes from the parents, from the teachers, that you have to score well in maths, especially. So he started this organization. He envisioned to make students view maths and entrepreneurship from a concept point of view rather than a traditional score fetching point of view. And before starting his own venture, he was associated with various other brands like Kotak, Cushman, and Wakefield as a financial expert. And he has also worked closely with a few reputed colleges as a visiting facility. I'm sorry, the faculty. Well, today he has joined us to talk on how we can actually teach maths, include by creative ideas, with the creativity. What is creative mathematics? Is there something like that we call as creative mathematics? Because we have been told to score and study maths just not thinking about anything else but to score well in maths, because that's what you have to make sure it'll take you ahead in future. So I was the one who was very much scared of maths. I used to hide whenever I used to see my maths teacher in the campus. So let's hear it from him, and without taking much time, I would request sir to please take over the session. Over to you, sir. A very warm welcome once again.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction, and I really appreciate the effort by your organization to, kind of spread uh, amazing opinions amongst people and trying to look at or reinvent rather the way education has been looked into in our entire country. So a warm welcome to all the people who are listening out. I'm sure all of you have your opinions about the subject of mathematics, and you may love the idea or you may not like the idea at all. It's something which everyone has a personal opinion about the subject. While I personally feel that maths as a subject, I've said this on various other platforms as well, and I have been very particular about this, that math exactly is not just a subject per se. It's more of a language, which most of us don't really speak. We don't speak it knowingly or intentionally, but subconsciously we all use this language. Now, if you talk about math as the way the curriculum has been designed and the way people have envisioned this to be in the entire school curriculum, the idea behind this was to develop a problem solving skill set. Unfortunately, the way we seeing kids try to develop their skill sets in math is purely focused on getting a lot of marks, trying to do very well in terms of getting the sums correct. But what we really need to do for our kids is to find different ways or different solutions for the same question. Now, that is why I personally believe that the importance of creative mathematics is highly important. Now, what exactly is creative mathematics? So the first thing that all of you need to understand that math is more of a skill set. This skill set is something which we all need to develop. This is not something which can be done by mere practice. Practice is a part and parcel of math, but it has to be mapped to every child's interest. It has to be mapped to every individual's area of, say, expertise. And it's also very important that the way you look at this. So, for example, if we try to teach children the way they want to learn rather than completing the portion, it makes a huge difference. So while we talk about math, the first thing everyone talks about is numbers, the way they talk about formulas. But what I want to see is that how is it actually a skill set? A child who's looking or getting a little bit a little idea about math or a little idea about their skill set, it's very, very important for us to know that how does a child really use that information and how do they actually process that in their day-to-day lives. So a child knows to go down and play. Of course, this was almost a year back when they used to go down to play, not now. But now, when they're sitting on their iPads or on their computer screens, they all know the class is ending at a certain amount of time. They've got certain amount of break. Now, everything that they do in between their breaks or in between their classes, they all calculate how much time do they have. So, do I have enough time to play on a game? Do I have enough time to actually do something in between my classes? This is all calculations of math. So what we're trying to do is we are actually trying to promote the skill set, which is very, very important amongst kids. This skill set is not something which will only and only come by providing them a formula, a rather understanding of the fact that if this formula was tweaked, what would happen? If we were able to take up uh, any given situation, let's say a lot of parents talk to me about television. Kids love watching television, love to, uh, you know, so I think if you look at, say, television or you look at any program or any cartoon these kids are watching, what do we really see over there? So kids are watching a television, they're watching their entire show. While we're looking at that, you see certain durations. Kids say, okay, there's a break time. We imagine if we can take that break time and tell the children to sit down with a calculator or maybe with a timer for that matter and say how much time did you see advertisement and how much time did you actually see the entire cartoon. And then, if you look at that and convert that into fractions, convert them into decimals, convert them into percentages, or so many things, or ratios for that matter, all of this is then mapped to the basic concepts of math. So today, I want to talk to all of you about a very simple thing: that how can we take up a few options or a few things around us and how we could teach math to our kids. I've been practicing this for the last 9 years. And we believe that if these tools or these methods are applied with your kids, it's going to be a lot more easier for your children to interpret the subject. Now, when I say interpret, please mark my words that interpretation is very important. If a child knows to add or he knows to subtract, he's not very good at math or she's not very good at math because they don't know when to add or when to subtract when you give them a different situation. That is where interpretation plays a very, very important role. So, for all the viewers, I would suggest, why don't you make a list whenever you're planning to do anything for your classroom, for your individual kid, or for anybody you want to work or help them in math. First things first, try and understand their area of interest. What are the things that they are very fond of? Are they fond of sports? Are they fond of creativity? Are they fond of watching online content or television or playing games? Or maybe they're fond of, playing toys or board games. There are so many options that every child has a different hobby. Some of them are fond of music. Some of them are fond of, building cars or different. Lego is becoming a new fad these days. So try and pick something which a child or a class or a bunch of these kids would actually be interested in. We pick that up and then we place them. Now, when we are placing them, we need to visualize that what kind of math can we actually teach them in it. Let's say, for example, Lego. I remember a bunch of kids who were really, really fond of Lego, and they all were like trying to create some amazing models out of it. So what we told them was, we told them, why don't you make a model or make a robot of your choice? Each one of them came up with a brilliant choice of robots. Now, while they did that, in order to make their robot look extremely interesting, each one of them used multiple colors, different shapes, and different types of Lego pieces, but 3x2 or 2x2 or 4x2 and stuff. All of it was was created by them, and then we tried to map this into different grades and as per different concepts for them. So, concept number one, the first thing that we could see was we actually could try and relate the concept of fractions. All the colors, there were roughly about, say, 35, 40 pieces used. Each and every color, what kind of fractions was available. Then we talk about what was the ratios possible. then we spoke about percentages, that what percent of a certain color was used in one robot as compared to the other robot. Now, while we were doing this, we kind of justified a simple fact that if I wanted to understand if a child A and a child B, which one had used more Lego blocks in terms of more white color Lego blocks. So directly, if I see that both of them had different robots, if I say child A and child B had say 10 and 12, I might say the one who has 12 has more. Now, here we told children because the total number of blocks was completely different from each other, the only way of comparison would only be percentage. Because 12 blocks out of 100 pieces and 12 blocks out of 50 pieces is totally different, right? So it was very important that we need to tell children, or we need to use the word. I've been stressing this word for the longest time possible: relevance. Where do these kids actually see relevance in the subject? So now this becomes a good relevance point for them, that okay, I think because percentage over here makes a lot more sense, because one robot had about 100 pieces, one had about 50 pieces. So obviously the 12 in the 50 is a lot more as compared to the 12 in 100 because of percentage out here. So not just by pure counting. So it's very important the way you design and the way you plan these things, because every little bit of us around us, anything that we are, the fact that you're watching this right now live on Facebook or YouTube or whatever channel you're watching, every single thing, the minutest thing possible, is all based on mathematics. If you see a message scrolling down, that's again been capsulated in the fact that in a certain duration of a time frame, how many characters can actually flow by, in which direction, why is a certain thing only in a rectangular position, why is this message not being flashed on a circle position or a circle shape. That's because it wouldn't fit properly, right? And it would lose people's attention. So everything that you see is actually driven by mathematics. It's just the way you project it and the way you present it to kids is the most important thing. We do intend to complete portions in different schools, but what we actually forget, I mean, I as a student never realized that in profit percentage, why did I use profit percentage? What was the logic behind it? Or why do I even create a fraction? Interestingly, talking about fractions, we've seen a couple of times kids understanding the concept of proper and improper fraction. But all of this is so abstract that they never get their hands on approach on it. So, what we've suggested a lot of times is to use simple things available at home. Like, say, for example, you open up bananas, and when you peel them off, you can show proper fractions out of it. But if you want to show improper fractions, you actually can take them in, with excessive fruits in your fruit basket and say, hey, look, I'm putting them in different compartments. I'm filling it up, but there are more fruits and actual compartments that I actually have. So this is how you can actually look at an improper fraction, convert this into a mixed fraction, and this is something which will be very, very easy for kids to understand, that why I'm actually doing a concept, something which is called as improper fractions and stuff like that. Anyways, so my message to everyone is that when you are looking at math, or when you're looking at a concept, whenever it's been positioned in front of you, being a teacher or a student or a parent for that matter, remember one thing: please try to see or try to empathize with the concept, that why do I even need this? Is this even relevant in today's time? Many a times, children, I remember there were a few kids whom I interacted with in a school in Ahmedabad. This is before COVID struck us. And they asked me a question that, we're talking about trigonometry, and we're talking about, the sine theta and the cos theta, and where do we actually need to use them? I'm not going to be an engineer. And I said, okay, agreed. Not everybody is going to be planning to, or preparing to be an engineer. So where do we actually see the application of trigonometry in our day-to-day lives? So I picked up a very simple concept and I said, why don't we do one thing? Why don't you go to your security room with the school's permission and identify how many security cameras are there in the outdoors of the school? I mean, outside the classroom. They went and identified that. They were given a mission or a task to actually reduce the number of security cameras by changing the angles of the existing ones and using trigonometrical ratios to actually cover more and more area with a limited number of cameras. When they did this entire exercise, they came back with saying that we don't need five cameras required in the school and we can remove them. When they gave their report, which was mathematically written, that we changed the angle of a certain camera to a certain direction, and then that allowed us to reach an entire different area and covered the existing area as well as a more bigger portion. That report was then very well appreciated by the school management, and they actually removed those five cameras. Now, these are few things which a child can relate to. It's important for a child to relate that okay, this is where math is actually applied, and this is where the concept of the math is actually going to make sense, and that is how we all can focus on teaching math. So with our message today, when you want to teach math without a textbook, you don't really need a curriculum. You just need to look at every single thing around you. Maybe it could be curtains. Like behind me, I can see curtains, and what is the area of these curtains? What is the volume required in terms of covering them? What's the length required? Everything that you do in your house, your entire concept of decision making is based on mathematical concepts. So should I be putting up an extra mattress, or should I need to put up a new chair, or do I need to do anything else in the house? Every single thing that you do, there's a mathematical decision maker in the back of your mind, and this is what we call it as a subconscious application of mathematics. So we want all the kids to start realizing that instead of just picking up a topic, it's high time that we start exploring and investigating. So when you want to explore something, you've got to ask your children that, hey, look, there's something out here. What kind of math do you see in this particular thing? So let's say, for example, I look at my iPad out here and I try to see what kind of math is involved in this iPad. But at the same time, what I should be telling the kids, this was exploration. Let's imagine if this particular iPad did not use math in actually making it, then what would happen? You would be amazed to see the way kids actually start interpreting this whole idea. And this in our language is called as investigation. They start putting, okay, first they're going to say that all the sides would not be equal, and then the whole shape of the gadget would go completely haywire. And this is the first step of them reinforcing all the concepts that you've been trying to teach them all throughout the years in terms of rectangles, squares, and other concepts that, this is how it looks like in terms of a symmetrical shape or a non symmetrical shape. Every concept of geometry starts trickling down step by step, one by one. If we are able to convince them that they are no longer math students but math investigators, if they are, we convince them that they're going to be deciding what could be better than what is actually given to them, it's the most beautiful gift as a teacher you can give them, and completely remove the fear or the phobia that we really talk about in today's time about mathematics. This is something which we all need to start thinking about. This is not just the job of a math teacher. This is not just the job of a school leader. This is just not a job of a parent. This is a job of every individual who starts putting his or her education in some or the other context and say that, hey, I think this is where math is actually applied. This is where we need to really understand it better. This is something which we need to start putting, and we need to do exploration and investigation. Pick up every single thing around you, explore what other kind of concepts of math used in it, and what would happen if those concepts were not used in it. By this, I think the children of today would actually appreciate, because they feel these concepts would make more, they would be more relevant to them, and they directly impact their lives. So that is going to be an interesting point to actually consider math. And uh, of course, I'll come to my favorite topic of connecting how math and sport can actually make a brilliant combination. Every kid, in my opinion, is fond of games, sports, uh, not necessarily only playing sports, but also watching sports. So you have a huge audience. The minute you talk about sports, you talk about games, be it online games, be it physical games, whatever games you talk about, these kids are extremely fond of it. I remember the other day, I was trying to help a child look at the coordinate geometry, and the child was doing well, but I'm sorry about that, but just one thing which changed the entire facial structure of the child. The minute I got a simple game like Minecraft and I said, this is your favorite character, let's plot this character on a graphical paper and let's pinpoint which part of this figure goes in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. You should have seen the way the child was smiling. It was an amazing experience to see that how every bit of that child's enthusiasm. Now, all we did was we still used the graphical paper, we still used coordinates, we still used the basic concepts of math, but what we did also include was something which the child could relate to, a figure on Minecraft, which was his favorite figure, and that is something which change the entire way of the entire session. So what I'm trying to really say is that no matter what we do, it's very important for us to understand that every child needs to understand that why is this particular concept relevant to him or her. So similarly, when you look at sports, every child either reads about sports or looks at what's happening in the sporting world. uh, I'm sure if you take any sport, let's talk about cricket. I mean, one of the biggest games in India, and every person is so fond of this game. Even parents are fond of it. Let's imagine if you watch this game with your child. While playing, you start building a strategy with your child. Then let's imagine a particular batsman is batting and saying that, hey, I think his average is about 20, but if he manages to go more than his average, he would be able to help us win the game. But the other people who are about to come, if they don't play as per their average, then we might not ever win. Or we might land up winning if they cross or they supersede or they undersede their actual performance. So every bit, every ball that is delivered in the game, right from the time the match starts till the time the match ends, the pitch report, the weather conditions, the kind of crowds which used to come in before the pandemic struck us, the kind of facilities for the players in terms of how big is the pitch, what is their dug up area, how much time does it take for them to take a refreshment. I mean, there was interestingly a rule that if a batsman gets out, then the other batsman should report at the crease in a certain amount of time. Now, you might think this is just a rule, but all of this, if you think very carefully, is a calculated plan to understand what is the expected duration of the entire match. Now, you might wonder why would you want to know that? Of course, for the ground to really function smoothly, but for to ensure there is enough manpower to run the entire show smoothly. If it's a one day international, if it's a 50 over match, assuming both the teams will play 50 overs, every wicket will fall, they're making assumptions which will actually lead to its optimum utilization. Every bit of data is then used, analyzed, created a matrix around it, and then we identify how much time is actually required in the entire match and how many hours are needed for it. This is something which we really need to showcase to kids. And most importantly, more than just watching the game, what I've seen is kids really enjoy is when you put the rule book in front of them. They start analyzing the rules and they say, okay, hey, look, I think there's some math used when this rule was derived. There was some math used when that rule was derived. Ask them to create their own game rules, come up with ideas which they had never thought of. So I remember when we were doing a case with a bunch of kids and we said, look, we're studying table tennis. Why don't you change the entire concept of the game, create a rule wherein three players can play instead of two players? Now decide what is the match point, how will the whole game go. Believe me, everyone came up with such a unique model that at times I actually wondered what would have happened if we would have actually pitched these ideas or put them in actual practice. I'm sure kids would have had a blast. They would have loved to do this. But The fact that they could think in that direction is purely because of mathematical values. It was purely because of the fact that math allowed them to think in that direction. So, in my appeal, I would say sport math is a very interesting concept. You break it with cricket, you break it with basketball, you break it with soccer. Uh, I mean, we've been running a program on cricket math wherein we've been very kind to be collaborated with a former Indian cricketer, Mr. Ajit Agarkar and Miss Fatima Agarkar, who are a part of Team Ace, and they've agreed and they were so excited to work with us when we started deciding working on you know, cricket and math. So we combined every aspect of cricket and every part of math and we collaborated them. The kids have loved it so much that they actually love analyzing each and every match. Thanks to both of them, thanks to the entire ACE team, that you actually see the way they give insight. So when Mr. Ajit Agarkar actually tells that as a cricketer, what kind of math was he using when he's on the field, it was amazing. And I actually was surprised to know that, you know, how does a player actually on the field constantly play with numbers, constantly work with equations, and the best part, when he was bowling, he would know that what are the chances of the ball going to the batsman in which direction, and he or would actually have to plan his entire fielding position in that way to avoid boundaries, or the target is to actually get a wicket or just to get a dot ball. Everything is so calculated in math that when you actually apply it, you might wonder that every step of your life is a part and parcel of math. So, with my final message to each one of you, I would want to appreciate that if you can, try to see one thing in a day. And every math teacher, if you could, or every educator, if you could try to land up or connect one thing around you in the campus, in your house, in your neighborhood, and try to explore that, hey, what kind of math is involved in this? Or what would happen if math would have not been used out here? Then what would be the outcome? This imagination itself will change the entire denomination of the way math has been looked at. It will no longer be a geeky subject, an abstract subject. It's going to be something which every individual will realize that nobody can survive without this subject. So, on that note, I'd like to thank GETI platform and all the organizers of this show that for bringing a wonderful pool of people. I've been seeing so many amazing videos. And of course, a big shout out to Dr. Sunita Gandhi as well for bringing this initiative and pulling this off so well. I'm sure all the schools would benefit. A lot of our entire education system now really needs a major change. We all were put in a situation which nobody had anticipated. Well, that's just a question outside the textbook. And I must say that all of us have done fabulously well. There was no marks given to us, but what was given to us was creativity. Every teacher went out and built a creative module just to deliver their thoughts to their kids. That's all mattered. And this is what will continue. And I think our spirit is something which will always continue. So, a big thank you to everyone for watching this live. I appreciate your time, and I also wish that all of us together can spread the language of math. I'm sure we can come up with a lot of solutions if math put together and combat the existing situation as well. Once again, a big thank you to the entire team.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your kind words and talking about math so easily. I mean, I could relate very well. It is difficult for many of the students out there, and this phobia starts from the school itself. I think we can, or the teachers and the parents, they can, give the picture of maths as a creative subject instead of putting it as it's difficult. That's what it starts from the beginning. That pressure is there from the beginning that you are not able to do it. And most of the time it happens that in maths, people, the teachers generally expect either the right answer or the wrong answer, the fixed. They are particularly very rigid. But if we are talking about the creativity part, we have to give them space to think beyond the correct answer. They can come up with creative answers. That's very
True.
important. And as you said that you have been doing this from past 8 years and have catered around 50,000 students. So how was your experience? Like, Do you remember any such incident that you would like to share with us about any particular student that you saw a significant change in the child about the interest in maths?
Well, I would say yes. I've seen a lot of stories. I've seen a lot of kids change the way they look at it. One specific child I remember, this was way back in the day. He was just a sixth standard, sixth grader, and he just came and told me the first thing that, look, I hate you. I hate the subject, so please don't talk to me. And I said, okay, I get it, no problem. So let's not talk about that subject. I agree that I can't change my face, but I'm sure we can do something to, have fun. And we started playing a game. We started playing Angry Birds on my phone, and with that, he started saying that, this is cool. I don't want to do anything related to math. I just want to play a game. And I said, okay. I mean, I don't know who spoke to you about math, but we were just going to be playing a game. So while we started playing different games, I started asking him questions that whatever the score he was getting, how would he expand that in terms of, a 5-digit number or a 6-digit number in terms of place values, and try to analyze each and every digit. Was it an even number? Was it an odd number? And very intelligently, he did catch me after 10 minutes that, hey, look, you said you won't teach me math, but you're still teaching me math. And I said, yeah, I'm not teaching you, it's there in your game. So, he said, yeah, actually, it's there in my game. So eventually, after a period of time, we noticed that this child started, everything when he was changing even his TV channels. The parents told me that every time he changed the channel, he said, this is an even number, this is an odd number. And he started, thinking in that direction. He started making sense out of the fact that my remote control has a certain number of channels, I mean, numbers on it, but it can go to a 3-digit number, it can make a 4-digit number or a 2-digit number. I think that's what I would say creative math can actually do for you. If you can, you can do wonders with it, but you just need to use the right strategy in place.
Wow. So I think we can start from the very beginning only instead of coming to the senior classes or the primary classes and then talk about it. But rather, we can start with the creative ideas, with creative teaching from the very beginning. Because I think if we are going to change the way we look at this particular subject, I think it's going to change everything. That's what is
I completely
needed
agree.
mostly.
I
Yes.
agree that it has to start at an early age, but given the current situation, I would suggest that there shouldn't be any restriction as to when this method should be applied. Of course, the base has to be very, very strong. I have found it very interesting to talk to kids who hate the subject but are in grade ninth and grade eighth, and I like to prove them that you don't like the subject but you're still using it, and everything that they do. So I personally feel that even if this is introduced at a later stage for a child, I mean we can't I mean we should not avoid the earlier stages, but it's also very important that at this point of time, this shouldn't be the focus should be towards primary or to the early years. The focus should be for every kid. More than every kid, a lot of parents who hate the subject or already have a phobia for it, which gets transferred down. So yeah, I think it. But yes, the most important part is going to be the early years, like you said. It's very important, but it's equally important to cater to all the levels of the kids right now.
Right. And I think this word hatred, this comes only when you don't understand anything. There's no such thing like hating anything, but when you don't understand anything, you simply hate it. You feel sleepy, you don't
Yeah,
find it interesting. So that's what the whole idea behind this, how we can make it fun, interesting. And we can even talk about the multiple intelligences here, where we can teach them as per the requirement of the child, as the child is understanding. There's so many
correct.
ways the child understands in different ways, whether it's through subjects or it's through the figures or it's by any other medium, pictures or anything. So that's what
True.
we can apply and students can learn. So hatred, I think I will also start loving it because I don't know if you really train the adults. So I would like to enroll myself in your classes and start loving
Definitely.
maths because I was never good at numbers. I always really tried hard, and that pressure from everywhere to score well. And it happens, it generally happens when you don't score well in maths. You
Hmm.
get to hear from people, be it from the teachers or anybody around you, that you won't be able to do anything in future because you are not good in maths. So
Unfortunately, marks doesn't. I mean, the only subject which can get you full marks is what is valued. But
yes.
logically speaking, if you see every subject around, sorry, has a lot of math involved in it, and this is where
Mm,
we want to showcase that how geography cannot be taught without math, history cannot be
mm,
taught without math, your languages cannot be taught without math because every story would have math, every part would have
somewhere.
math. So it's very very important that everything that we do, we need to make them realize, like you said, uh, just to know that why do you need this subject, why do you need this concept. That part, once it is solved, I think just giving a real life example doesn't work in these days. You need to give
Mm,
them an experience, like just for, I mean, the most basic example I can say, when you teach a child how to swim, it's a one time experience. After that, the child will
right.
never forget swimming. You talk about cycling. So
Yes,
math
yes.
cannot be possibly that difficult. It's just the way you give it an experience, the way you give people an opportunity to experience it. People are going to love it, but then they will never understand the depth of it. And that's where a teacher has to play a very, very important role.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, that was really very insightful and interesting as well.
Thank
Overall,
you.
a very good session. So, all the teachers out there and all the students out there who are watching us right now or will watch us sometime later, they can definitely try these ideas as told by Sir, and they can make their mathematics, more fun, interesting, and less boring. So I think overall it was a fun session. Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you for choosing something very different to talk
Most
about.
welcome. Thank you.
And thanks to all the viewers for joining in. If you have any questions, you can simply post it in the comment section. We will definitely try to address. And yes, we'll connect very soon again, sir, with some other topic to talk on.
Sure.
It was lovely having
Definitely.
you on this platform. A big thanks to you on behalf of our team Getty. And yes, stay safe, everyone. And yeah, take care. Bye bye. Thank you so much, sir. It was lovely having you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye
Okay,
bye.
sir. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.